And what we learned is that for many people, the pendulum had swung too far in the direction of superficial online communications at a time when we're all hungry for true human connection. So we believe that the human connection is what's key, and that brings that pendulum back when you inject this idea of a human connection.
When planning and working on a new model to incorporate into your business, especially one that seems strange to most business owners, you go with the knowledge that the marketplace is going to hang on tightly to what you're after, that it will not give you anything easily. When you consider the magnitude of the competition around you, you move by the energy of the environment. Yet your suspicion that the marketplace would just as happily consume and crush you as let you exist in it fills you with a strange sort of dread. But as you take your first few steps into the unknown, you feel a rush that comes from the frictional heat of two conflicting ideas. There's a desire to turn around and return to the status quo, and there's a desire to go forward towards the promise of a better future. In that moment, if you push ahead, you will feel the essence of what it means to be an entrepreneur. I'm Ken Newhouse. To me, building a profitable business isn't only about generating leads and driving sales. It's about who we are and what we're made of. I succeed in business by finding the most effective client attraction methods and find the most effective client attraction methods to succeed in business. Join us on the quest as we search for the newest and most effective methods you can use to get clients now. Building a huge fan base and becoming an online influencer. For most of my life, having a top-ranked podcast and becoming an influencer never crossed my mind. But then I read books like Influencer Marketing by Cloris Kiley and Fanocracy by the great writer David Meerman Scott. He presented the idea of becoming an influencer and leader of a tribe of loyal and passionate fans as an opportunity where an individual with purpose, drive, and a never-ending desire to share value with the marketplace could create a significant online presence and experience success in your business as big as anyone online. From then on, I knew that some way, somehow, I would make my way towards this place. That day has arrived, and joining me on my journey is writer and serial entrepreneur David Meerman Scott. Hey everybody, Ken Newhouse here, and I want to welcome you to this episode of the Get Clients Now podcast. And with me today, you may have heard of this guy. No, he's not a professional surfer, although he would love to be a professional surfer. David Meerman Scott. David, on behalf of myself and the members of the Get Clients Now Nation, I want to welcome you to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ken. I really appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I'm actually going to be surfing starting next week for 3 weeks in a row, and I'm so excited about it. But no, I am very, very, very far from a professional surfer.
Surfing for 3 weeks, that sounds like me going bow hunting or fishing for 3 weeks. I just love to be outside. I mean,
yeah.
So I share your passion. I lived in, just real quick, I lived in Newport Beach when I first graduated from chiropractic college many years ago.
Wow.
And I got to spend 3 years there. My cousin was an avid surfer, and I just could never really pick it up, although I tried.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. It's very athletic. People don't understand that it's very physically demanding.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the muscles, your shoulders, like it's very, very aerobic. And also the core is really important. So I do yoga in the off season. I do a lot of core exercises on the off season to prepare for it. But I started when I was an adult, so I'm never going to get good. I'm not like those people who started when they were like 7 years old. So I'm never going to get good, but I just love it. It's like one of my favorite things.
It's like the beautiful and talented Lisa, my wife, grew up skiing in Mammoth. And Mitch and I talked about this when I talked to him on the show last week. His show actually airs today, but great guy. He totally knows Mammoth. I've never skied there, but Lisa actually won the Junior U.S. Nationals, and she skied against Peekaboo Street and demolished her back in the day. And then she had some serious ACL injuries, and that kind of put the kibosh in college. That really hurt her. But I learned how to ski after I got hit by a dump truck. So I'm a pretty good skier, like better than most skiers. But when I go with Lisa, it's like, okay, I'll meet you in a couple hours, because within 30 seconds, she's visibly out of my sight. I mean, I'll ski fast, but she's just like effortless and gone, and it's just what it is.
I saw that picture of your Jeep after the dump truck. That is pretty amazing. Unbelievable story.
It is, and I'm thankful I'm alive, and It's taught me a lot of lessons, and I think it's helped me to be a lot more empathetic to people.
Yeah.
But having said that, let's do this. Let's dive in because I know you're pressed for time and I want to get right to it because this is such a good book. And guys, let me just say this right off the bat, as my customary procedure is, David's book, Fanocracy, is a very in-depth book. I'm going to start off by saying that it is a book that will transform if you implement. It's not magic. You can't buy the book and then have this magical transformation take place. If you will buy the book and implement it, will literally transform your business. And I believe that so much so, that's the reason I have him on the show today. So you're going to buy the book. If you deploy and implement what he gives you in the book, you're going to notice tremendous transformational change in your business. If you can't say that, and if you've honestly done your due diligence, not just read it, but you've studied it, this is a manual. This is not a quick read and I'm ready to go. You have to literally put some thought into this, but you're going to benefit. And if you don't notice tremendous benefit in your business, which you will, email me at customerservice@kennewhouse.com and I will buy the book from you. It doesn't happen often, but when you email me and say, listen, I gave this an honest effort, I'm going to stand behind what I said. So the book is that good. Not only is it worth the money, it's worth the investment of your time. And time is that one thing, like I tell our clients and members, and David, you know this, we can always make more money. We can always get more clients. We can never get more time. It's the one thing we have to value. And so this is a tremendous value. And I want to get that out of the way because it goes without saying, it's just that good. And I'm, I love my job. One of the reasons I love doing what I do is because I get to read so much amazing content and meet such amazing people. So thank you for writing the book, David. It's just tremendous. And thank you to your daughter. Is it Rico? Did I pronounce it or is it Rico? I don't know.
It's Rico.
Rico.
But
okay.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ken, for that kind guarantee that you put behind the book. I really appreciate that. You know, Rico and I spent 5 years of our lives researching this idea of fandom, what drives people to become a fan and how organizations or people can build fans. And it's been super, super exciting for us to do that. So thank you very much for that kind introduction.
You know, I'm jealous of the fact that you got to spend 5 years with your daughter. My oldest daughter lives in Brooklyn. She's home actually this week, maybe for 2 weeks to visit, but I cherish the time with my daughter. So it's just must have been a real blessing to be able to spend that kind of time working with your daughter. But let me ask you this. You spent 5 years. Let me say this. You invested 5 years doing the research for this book. But what was the trigger, David? What was the genesis that told you, hey, listen, Rico and I need to write this book?
So we're close. I only have one child, Rico. She's now 27. So when we started this project, she was about 21 or so. And what we talked about all the time is how we are just massive geeky fans of the things that we love. Like you mentioned surfing earlier, and in your case, skiing, and your wife's case, of course, skiing. When we become fans of something, it's incredibly important to us. It also means that we spend a huge amount of money doing that activity. So I'm a massive fan of live music. I'm such a fan of live music. I keep a spreadsheet. I've been to 804 live shows in my life, which is a ridiculous number. I actually have, because we're recording this episode now in June of 2020, I haven't seen a show in 3 months. And it's like, I don't know, I'm going through some kind of withdrawal because of COVID. There's no live music going on. But I calculated that I've spent nearly $500,000 on live music since I was 15 years old. My favorite band, the Grateful Dead, I've seen them 75 times. So I was talking to Reiko and saying, oh my God, I'm such a geek about live music. And she started, and I knew this about her, but then she started to really dig in to how much she's a fan of Harry Potter. So she's not only read every book multiple times, seen every movie multiple times. She went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter theme park in Orlando twice. She went over to the UK to go on the studio tour, and she wrote an 85,000-word alternative ending to the Harry Potter series where Draco Malfoy is a spy for the Order of the Phoenix, put that on a fan fiction site that's been downloaded thousands and thousands of times, hundreds and hundreds of comments. She's also a fan of getting dressed up and going to Comic-Con. That's Reiko in the middle there. So we're both incredible geeks about the things that we love, and we started to talk with people. This was even before we decided to do the book. started to talk to people about what they're a fan of. And we both independently recognized that this idea of fandom, if we could really understand deeply what's going on, becomes a really powerful tool for all kinds of organizations or people to do business. Fandom, it's something people don't really think that much about. So that's what got us into the research. And the reason we chose to work together is because we're so obviously different. I'm obviously different generation because she's my daughter, obviously different gender. She's a millennial woman and I'm a baby boomer man, but she's also mixed race. My wife, Yukari, is Japanese. Reiko was born in Tokyo. And very importantly, we came from different backgrounds in terms of what we studied in school. Reiko studied neuroscience as an undergraduate at Columbia University. And this is actually a historic moment right now, Ken. She just finished, got her MD at Boston University School of Medicine a couple of weeks ago. Today, as we're doing this recording, today, literally 2 hours ago, she started as an emergency resident at Boston Medical Center. She's
Congratulations.
A doctor. Thank you. It's really exciting. You're the first person that I've mentioned that to today, and it's really exciting that we're recording this because Reiko comes at this idea of fandom in terms of how medical professionals, doctors, dentists, other people can create fans as well. It's not just for big companies. It's not just for the Grateful Dead. It's not just for Harry Potter. It's for B2B companies, nonprofits, government agencies. It doesn't matter. Doctors, lawyers, dentists. We found examples of fandom with all of these organizations. And I think it's super cool that Reiko has really dug into that from the perspective of how doctors, dentists, and other healthcare professionals can grow their fan base.
Just as a side note, it wasn't in my questions, but just the thought of having this body of work that you've co-created with your daughter that's going to go into perpetuity and it's going to be passed down not only to her children, but her children's children. And then as time goes on and they can always look back and say, wow, look what my great grandpa and my grandma did, or my mom and my grandpa did. I think that just, and then certainly as you get older, you can look back with your daughter. That'll be just tremendous. But let me ask you this, David, given the fact that in your book, I think it was 790 live shows you'd been to. So now you're up to, you said 804?
804 as of now. And that's been holding steady for 3 months. It's the longest period of time since I was 15 years old that I haven't seen a live show.
So in light of that, in light of the fact that we know that you love to surf and you're getting ready to go on vacation to do a little bit of surfing, a lot of surfing, what's something about you that your fans don't know that you'd really like them to know?
So interestingly, I have been to, and you can tell the spreadsheet with my geeky how many concerts I've been to. But I've now been to well over 100 countries in my life and all 7 continents. I'm just a geek about getting on airplanes and traveling, which again, I haven't done that for 3 months either. But I really enjoy understanding different cultures, different people, and not to make a lesson out of it, but it really is an important aspect of fandom because fandom is a global thing. And if you understand from a broad perspective how people engage, it makes you better at building relationships with people and how you can create fans. So 100 and I think I'm up to 109 countries, all 50 US states, and all 7 continents.
Let me ask you this, David. When you wrote this book, obviously you've poured yourself into this book, a tremendous investment of time and effort, and I would dare say money as well. But what about writing this book really surprised you the most?
So when we started this process, our thesis was that any organization can build fans. It doesn't matter whether you're a B2B company, a nonprofit, a dentist. It doesn't matter. Any organization can build fans. And that we didn't know whether that was true, but that was our thesis. And so when we went into it, it was surprising to us that in fact, that turned out to be true. And I'd like to share two examples that were really surprising to us. The first example is we found a U.S. government agency that has millions and millions and millions of fans all over the world. You can be walking down the street of any city in the world and not be surprised if somebody approaches you walking towards you wearing a T-shirt from this U.S. government agency. Do you know which one it is? Can you guess?
I'm going to play naive here. Go ahead.
It was NASA. And NASA has millions of fans. So even a U.S. government agency can develop fans. We found an insurance company that has over 1 million fans. And most people absolutely hate insurance. And this is an auto insurance company. They're called Hagerty. They do classic car auto insurance. And what we loved about we spoke with McKeel Hagerty, the entrepreneurial founder and owner of Hagerty Insurance. What we loved learning from him is he said to us flat out, David, everyone hates our business. Everyone hates insurance. So we couldn't grow our business the way that other insurance companies do. We're not going to become the low-cost provider. We're not going to spend more money on ads than everybody else. We have to do something different. So what we chose to do was build fans. And
outside the box, for sure. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead and run with it.
That's exactly right. So they said, okay, that's it, 100%. So they started by going to classic car auto shows around the country that they knew that people who love classic cars go to. And they would meet people there who are already fans of classic cars, give advice, do seminars about car valuations and insurance, things like that. They started to build fans. They created a YouTube channel. It now has over 1 million subscribers, built more fans. They created a Hagerty Drivers Club, where online and offline, you can interact with other people. So they have 650,000 members of this program now, and you can interact on their website with other people who own the same car as you. It's pretty amazing. And they now have, as I said, millions of fans, and it's turned them into the largest classic car auto insurance company in the entire world. They're going to grow by double-digit growth this year, as they have every year. And they're just absolutely crushing it. And McKeel Hagerty told me, he said, David, I built my business based on fandom. I built my business based on creating fans for what we do.
I first became interested in working with David after reading his latest book, Fanocracy. David Meerman Scott is the ultimate entrepreneur, in my opinion. He cares about people and fellow entrepreneurs. He lives the lifestyle that he promotes, and he's created an amazing lifestyle for himself using the strategies that he teaches.
And what's interesting about this, I'm actually a customer. I have a 1973 Land Rover Series 3. And what's interesting about this is that once you have fans in this way, you no longer become a commodity product. And so if another insurance company came to me and said, David, we'll give you 20% off, whatever you're paying Hagerty, pay us 20% less, we'll insure your Land Rover, ain't going to happen. Because I'm a Hagerty fan. Because I love what they do. I love their content. I love that they send me a magazine, Hagerty Magazine, every other month. I mean, there is no way to compete with that. So that's what...
Didn't they also create an app so that when people go to these car auctions, these classic car auctions, that they can actually, instead of writing all this stuff on paper, that's the thing that really jumped out at me. That's really diving into this head first and really embracing the culture of creating, fanocracy in your business. Tell the nation about that for just a second, because I was really intrigued by that.
It was really, really interesting what they did there. Exactly. What they realized by talking to lots and lots of classic car owners and enthusiasts is that they love to go to the auctions. And every year in January in Scottsdale, Arizona, it's the biggest auto auctions, a series of auto auctions that happen. The problem is that there's 6 or 8 different auction companies that are all holding their multi-day auctions at the same time in the same place. So you can't physically go to the Sotheby's auction and the Heritage auction and the Barrett-Jackson auction and the other auctions because they're all happening at the same time. So they created an app, as you just said, which is super cool because you can hold the app, smartphone app, And you can be watching what's happening at the other auctions while you're sitting in one of them physically. And you can see as cars are sold or as they are perhaps passed, what the price they sold for it are. Even in the auctions that you're not at, because this app is reporting the prices that they sold in real time. And that's, again, a super cool way that they've built this fan base. And it's very, very different than just selling insurance. It's growing a fan base based on understanding what it is that those classic car owners love.
Yeah, so they've identified their ideal or their perfect prospect, their perfect client, customer, patient, whatever it is. And they've given them something, because I can hear the voices in the background saying, well, this has nothing to do with their business. Listen, it has everything to do with their business, because as Gary Vaynerchuk says, and a lot of other people say, we're all vying for attention. Attention is scarce. It's hard to get a hold of. And so you want to create an environment. That's one of the big takeaways I got from the book, is how to actually create this environment where we can magnetically suck these people in, our target prospects, the people that we want to do business with and serve, and keep them so that their attention is focused on us without hammering them with, discounts or free shipping or some of the other things that you mentioned in there, the way businesses typically compete. Let's do this. I want to dive in and take a closer look at the book Fanocracy, if we could.
Sure.
You've already done this kind of in a roundabout way, but take 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Tell us specifically what a fan is and what is a fanocracy as it relates to our business.
Sure. So, great question. So what we looked at is big picture. What makes a fan? Why does somebody become a fan of something? Why am I a fan of surfing? Why am I a fan of classic Land Rovers? Why am I a fan of the Grateful Dead? And it turns out one of the most fundamental things going on actually is rooted in neuroscience. And as I mentioned earlier, my daughter and co-author Reiko did a neuroscience degree undergraduate. So she was great in terms of putting us together with really important neuroscientists to understand what's happening in the brain around fandom. And it turns out that every single one of us is hardwired to want to be part of a tribe of like-minded people. Because when we're with a tribe of like-minded people, that's when we feel safe and that's when we feel comfortable. And that's the idea of what a fanocracy, which is a culture that fans rule. A fanocracy is the culture where fans rule, as opposed to the company saying, this is how you will use our product. This is how you will engage with us. A fanocracy is, here is our art, here's our idea, here's our product, here's our service, do with it what you want. And so this is a photograph of me and my friends at a Grateful Dead concert. So when I'm at a Grateful Dead concert, I feel safe and secure because I'm with my tribe. I can turn to anybody, even if I've never met them, and know that I have a ton in common and can immediately start a conversation. That same thing is true with Haggerty. You can be at a Haggerty booth at a classic car show and know instantly that you have a ton in common with the other people there. So it's actually rooted in neuroscience, this idea of wanting to be part of a tribe of like-minded people. So the obvious thing here then is, how can you build a tribe in your business? How can you build a tribe of people who are eager to do business with you, who even if a lower priced solution comes along, won't leave because they love you so much? And then that's what we really dug into. And there's multiple chapters that provide different ideas for each of those things.
I would say that, this is like a vast reservoir of genius that he has assembled for you. And there's example after example, because I can already, again, hear people saying, well, I don't sell car insurance, or I don't do this or do that. Well, listen, there's so many different examples. And I know, because you're listening to this show, you're intelligent. You know how to take good ideas and transform them and use them in your business. And David, you guys have given so many examples in the book. That's why I said this is not a one-time read. This is a manual. You got to study it. The information is there and you've laid it out nicely, but I'm going to actually read something I wrote. So I'm going to have to look off to the side of my screen here. And then once I kind of read the statement, because this is going to be a little bit of a clip out of your book, I want you to take it and run with it. But a tremendous amount of business today is driven online, as an example. we have to look at all that happens on social media. And it seems like a lot of business owners are trying to do their thing, maybe kind of off the back of their heels, so to speak. And they can see that things are changing online, but they're not exactly sure what's going on. They can tell something's not quite right. But in the book, in Fanocracy, you talked about companies, as an example, offering discounts, free shipping, etc., as incentives and value propositions. But due to the overwhelming digital clutter, this approach means that these companies are forced to focus on products and services. And this, again, is a direct quote, this last part. Focus on products and services instead of what they should be focusing on, which is people, their living, breathing customers. I want you to expound on that.
Sure. So we spoke with a lot of people, hundreds and hundreds of people, as well as hundreds of companies, people about what they become a fan of and companies, how they've developed fans. And what we learned is that for many people, the pendulum had swung too far in the direction of superficial online communications at a time when we're all hungry for true human connection. So we believe that the human connection is what's key, and that brings that pendulum back when you inject this idea of a human connection. And so if you think about what's going on in the online world right now, we've got tremendous polarization because the social networks, as well as the search engines and YouTube and whatnot, the algorithms are all driven to get you to the lowest common denominator, to get you to click onto things. So they focus a lot on things like Discord, on things like providing things that make you go, oh my gosh, and that you click on it. They love to put you into a box against another group, this group versus that group. It's particularly playing out in the political world right now as we're leading into here in the United States into this election. People hate when they buy a product with a company and then they get on an email list they didn't ask to get on, and it's really hard to get off that list. People hate when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn and they immediately try to sell you something. This is stuff that people just don't like. So this idea of, okay, well, what's the alternative? The alternative is a genuine human connection. The alternative is, how can you engage with people in a way that really builds a powerful connection and drives them into becoming a part of your tribe? And that's especially true today in this online world. And I think, I think it's important that we're actually recording this in June of 2020, which is when, this whole COVID thing is really big right now. And because we can't meet people in person so much these days, social distancing and so on, it means that we do have to rely more often on the online tools. And because so many people think that those online tools are polarizing and they're not as warm and friendly as they could be, if you can make them so, then you're going to be much more powerful. And there's a number of ways we can talk about to do that. But I think what it comes down to is just realizing that the people you're trying to reach are individual people. They're not numbers. They're not part of an AI algorithm. They're individual people. And how can you interact with them that way?
So, given the fact that you and Reiko have interviewed so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people, business owners just across the board, have you found, David, that there is a tipping point or maybe a trigger where the person or the company that has, they're doing business where they're product and service focused, where they get to the point where they're like, okay, boom, we've got to make the change, because if we don't make the change towards creating a fanocracy in our business, we're going to become irrelevant very, very quickly. Have you noticed any kind of a commonality among businesses where they just come to that realization?
I think what we've seen, yes, we have. I think what we've seen is that when an organization or a person, it could be a dentist, for example, sees that they're being commoditized, that there's, you're one of many, and the potential customers and even your existing customers treat you as exactly the same as the other guys, that's when you need to say to yourself, well, what am I doing to make it feel like I'm just the same as the other guys? And how can I do something that's utterly different? Let me give you an example.
Sure.
So batteries are kind of an ultimate commodity product, right? One battery pretty much works the same as any other battery, despite what the advertising might say. You know, they're pretty much the same. And we spoke extensively with Duracell. We spoke with Ramon Valentini, who at the time was head of marketing for all of Duracell, and he told us about this amazing way that they build fans, which is called Duracell Power Forward. So what Power Forward does is that they provide free batteries to people in need due to natural disasters. That's how it was originally built.
Right.
So hurricane, flood, earthquake, things like that. If there's a natural disaster, the power goes out. And when the power goes out, there's a tremendous demand for batteries. So what Duracell could be doing is selling their batteries in this case. They could even be selling the batteries for more money than they normally sell the batteries for. But what Ramon told me that they do is they actually go to these disaster sites they have a fleet of trucks, the Duracell Power Forward fleet. They go to the disaster site and give away batteries for free. So for example, they actually airlifted 2 trucks and tons of batteries to Puerto Rico when Hurricane Maria struck. And they went from village to village giving people free batteries. Now, during COVID, they've given away, it's a remarkable number, 10.5 million batteries the last time I spoke with Ramon a couple of weeks ago. 10.5 million batteries to first responders, to healthcare facilities like hospitals. But they went one step further. They actually put mobile phone charging stations into the waiting rooms of hospitals that treat COVID patients. Why did they do that? Well, they learned that when people's loved ones are suspected to have COVID, they rush them to the hospital. They stick their mobile phone in their pocket. But then when they arrive, the doctor says, you're going to be here for a while. It's going to take, hours, if not a couple of days for us to figure out what's going on. Yep. Feel free to go home or you can wait here. A lot of people want to wait. And when they're in the waiting room, they're on their phone, the power drains. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't have my charger cable. What am I going to do? Well, they have Duracell set up these power stations. You could plug in your phone. And so all of this is free. The batteries are free. The power station is free. Ramon told me that we're in the power business. Duracell is in the power business.
Yep.
And at a time of great need, whether it's people in the waiting room waiting to learn about the status of their loved one, or whether it's when the power goes out because of a hurricane or a tornado or whatever it might be, that's when we want to give away our product. That's when we want to build fans, because if people become our fans now, they will buy batteries of our brand for the rest of their lives. And that's exactly what they've found has happened. And so this is a commodity product, a battery. And they've elevated themselves beyond being a commodity product by this Power Forward initiative. They have other initiatives too, but this is the one I thought was so cool, Power Forward. And that's something that we can all do. I mean, I'm not saying we all should give away our product, but when we build those human connections, we elevate ourselves above just being a commodity.
Yeah, and the fact that, most of the people who listen to this podcast, I don't know all of them, but I have a pretty good feel for who listens, who remembers the Get Client Sound Nation. They're selling high-end products or they're in high-end service businesses. And so this should become even easier for you to do, especially if you're utilizing Fanocracy, the book, to lead you down the path. But David, if I could, I want to read a quote from your book and then kind of give a statement and then follow that up with some questions. And the quote in the book is, "This act of consciously bringing people together through a shared endeavor is called a fanocracy." So when you're working with a client whose business is actually, their business model, for all intents and purposes, has been the product and service focused type of business that we've been talking about, and you're actually working with this company, this individual, to create a fanocracy, What have you found to be the typical sticking point that they bring up that serves as a bit of a roadblock or a point of resistance to want to actually dive into creating this Fanocracy?
So a lot of people push back and they say, I'm not able to create fans because I'm in the, and then you can just fill in the blank. I'm in the blank business. I'm a nonprofit. I'm a government agency. I'm a B2B software company. We're an enterprise software company. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a dentist. I can't build fans. That's what people say to us all the time. There's one, I mentioned earlier that we really dug into the neuroscience of fandom. And there's one thing that we learned that was particularly interesting as a way to think about this idea of fandom and to elevate yourself from just a provider of products and services to an organization that builds fans. And that's this idea of proximity, this idea of getting close to other customers. So think of it as a bullseye. And when we spoke with a bunch of neuroscientists, one neuroscientist that first talked about this idea, his name is Edward T. Hall. I talked about it way back in the 1950s. But the further ring is 12 feet or further from us. That's called public space.
Right.
And in public space, we humans know that people are in our public space, but we don't actually track them because it's further away than our brains are focused on tracking those people. However, inside of 12 feet to about 4 feet is called social space. So incidentally, now when they say you should be social distancing, it means keeping people in your social space. Our brains begin to track those people. That's an ancient survival technique because we need to know, are the people that are coming close to us within 12 feet, are they friendly or are they not friendly?
Yeah.
Is this part of our tribe or not part of our tribe? So if you're with people that you like, in my case, at a Grateful Dead concert, or perhaps I walk into a party and I know some people there, I feel safe and comfortable being in their proximity. But if I get into a crowded elevator, I don't feel safe and comfortable. And then inside of 4 feet is called personal space. And personal space is where the most powerful human connections happen. So normally, if we weren't in the COVID lockdown, I would say, how can you figure out ways to get your customers into close proximity with either other customers or with you and your employees? So, for example, if you run a software company, can you create a user conference to bring people together? Can you actually go out and meet clients, have lunch with them? And you might say to me, but David, we're in a COVID lockdown. We can't be doing that right now. Well, there's another form of neuroscience, which is really interesting. It's called mirror neurons.
Absolutely.
Mirror neurons are the part of our brains that fire when we see somebody doing something as if we're doing it ourselves. I want to demonstrate it, and then I want to provide an example about how we can use this. So I've got a lemon and a slice of lemon here. And if I take a bite of this slice of lemon, it's really powerful and it makes my eyes close. My eyes are watering a little bit. I can feel it on my lips and on my tongue, and my mouth is watering as well. And it's, biting into a lemon is a really powerful thing. My brain is firing, but your brains are all firing too. You feeling that, Ken?
Yes.
It's crazy, right? And
yes.
So what's happening is that your mirror neurons are firing just by seeing me do that. So here's where this becomes really interesting as a way to build fans right now for every single one of us. And that is, how can we use video?
A serious entrepreneur has to love the challenge he faces in the marketplace as much as he loves building a profitable business, or else he's going to be asking himself, what the heck am I doing here? This is a place where a mental slip-up can cost you your last dime. And I'm not just saying that to sound dramatic. I mean, the fierceness of the marketplace can literally kill you. The irresistible draw of entrepreneurship is that it requires constant attention and analysis. There's no room for that buzz of faraway vacations or recreation that tends to fill the back of our heads on most days and most places. It's the pursuit of building something magnificent that matters here and nothing else.
video, cropped as if we're 4 feet away, sort of the distance that both Ken and I are cropped right now, 4 feet away from the people watching the video. Now, the camera might be 4 feet or more or less, but you really want to have it cropped about like I am right now, as if I'm at a cocktail party having a conversation with you. And these videos that you can make, simple gear, you don't need high-end gear, you don't need a professional to shoot it. I've got some simple gear that I'm using right now, just a basic screen cam, and I'll show it to you, I think, if I don't break anything. Is got a little microphone here, got a little set of lights over here. Real simple gear, $200, and you're good to go. And then you create a series of videos. Perhaps you create a YouTube channel. That's something that Matt Reisinger did. Matt is a builder in Austin, Texas. And Matt created a YouTube channel that grew his business from $0 to $20 million. Matt says to me, David, oh my God, thank you for sharing that idea with me. I grew my business from $0 to $20 million. But Matt also makes over $500,000 in ad revenue on his YouTube channel. So you could do a YouTube channel, or what I suggest, you don't even need to do a YouTube channel right away. Put a video on your website in the appropriate places. We learned that if you put a video on the page of your website where there's a call to action, you can increase the number of people who fill out your form by 20 to 40%. And I've actually seen that in my own case.
That's huge.
It's huge.
That's
so
huge.
most companies will say, we want to hear from you. Fill out this form and contact us. And so if you just have the form, people are like, well, I don't know if I want to fill that out. The company might start to spam me or start to call me up in the middle of the night or whatever. But if you do a video, and I did one, I've got a couple of them on my own site where I say, hey, it's David Meerman Scott. I would love to speak at your next event. If you'd like to learn more about having me speak, fill out the form. It's right there. I'm not going to hassle you. If you fill out the form, I'll learn a little bit about your event. I can provide some ideas to have a good one. So I'm looking forward to speaking at your event. Fill out that form. 20 to 40% increase in the number of people who fill out that form because of video. And one more thought on video is that it's a great way on social networks, because with video, the social networks love video and they tend to show it to more of your followers. I put out a video a couple of days ago. It's got something like 5,000 views. This happened to be on LinkedIn because LinkedIn loves video and they tend to show that video to more people than they show a text-based post.
Right.
So lots and lots and lots of reasons why video is effective. And one of the reasons that you feel you know a movie star is those mirror neurons.
Yeah.
Right? You know intellectually you've never met that movie star. You know intellectually right now that David Meerman Scott and Ken, we're hundreds or even thousands of miles away from you, but your brain is firing as if we're in the same room. You can develop the exact same thing if you use video the way that we're using it right now.
And so, yeah, that's one of the things I learned. I think I learned that from not the neuroscience, because my undergraduate degree as a chiropractor was in neuroscience.
Oh,
but
cool.
Which I thought was just kind of cool. But in having said that, I learned a long time ago from Frank Kern much of what you're telling me, but just not in the depth that you're telling me. Well, let me say this. This last segment that you talked about, he didn't cover even a small percentage of what's in the book. But Frank was talking about making people feel like, people feel like they're your friends and like they know you. And there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of it's based in neuroscience, and we know a lot more in your book. And for the guys, for those of you that are not medically inclined like myself, or like Reiko, or like David, it's not written, the information on neuroscience. And neuroscience, if you want to be a great marketer, if you want to be really highly skilled at marketing your business, you have to understand neuroscience, human psychology, human behavior. The book doesn't present the neuroscience in a way that's dry, like a textbook, like his daughter would have read at, was it Boston College or Boston University?
Boston University, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's like in a friendly user, very user-friendly fashion. But let me read another quote from your book. We've got just about 10 more minutes, and I'm going to knock a few of these questions out if we could. So give me about a minute-long answer, but here's the quote. This is from the book. A genuine interest in your customer leads from a transaction to Fanocracy While many companies falsely think that their job is to facilitate a transaction and to do so at as low of a cost as possible, your job as the business owner is to create fandom. And here's my question. So in the process of trying to create fandom, so you've got the business owner or the company that says, yes, we're on board, we're going to do this. Where do you see, David, the area where they're going to do it, they're giving it their effort? Where do they fail most?
So the biggest failure I see is that so many organizations are focused on their own products and services, and they're not focused enough on the problems that they solve for their customers. So the more that you can focus on understanding the people you're trying to reach, what their problems are, and then create the way that you interact with them based on that, the more successful you're going to be. I saw the thumbs up there.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to get to. So that really, you brought that out so well in the book. So what do you think about, well, let me ask you this. When a business owner actually starts the process and they create the Fanocracy, even at a low level, and obviously they can always improve that by adding more and more layers, what really surprises people the most about this when they finally start to get it right in their business?
So one of the things we actually were surprised as well as we were talking to people about a concept, which is the concept of passion. So what we learned is that passion is infectious. When you're passionate about your work and you're sharing it with other people can't help but share that passion with you. And I want to illustrate this by talking about a dentist. His name is Dr. John Marashi. That's Dr. Marashi right there.
I like the tie.
He's a cool dude. He loves bow ties. I met Dr. Marashi at a Tony Robbins event. I speak at Tony Robbins Business Mastery events. And this is a couple of years ago. Dr. Marashi was in the audience. I was talking about building fans, and he approached me after my talk and said, David, I'm a dentist. I can't build fans, man. This is not my thing. I go, well, Dr. Marashi, we can all build fans. I said, what do you love to do? I said, I love the Grateful Dead. I love to surf. What do you love to do? He goes, I love skateboarding. And you could see him come alive with this passion for skateboarding. So I said, well, let's talk about that in context with your dentistry. So he's a dentist in Southern California. And he goes, David, there's 10,000 or more dentists in Southern California. I'm one of 10,000. That's crazy. And then I said, okay, well, let's focus on skateboarding. So Dr. Marashi in his office has skateboards on the wall. He skateboards from one examination room to the other.
Sweet.
He's got photographs of him skateboarding. I actually yanked that photograph on his website. He's got an Instagram with 14,000 followers. Many of the photos are him skateboarding. He is now not one of 10,000 dentists. He is the skateboarding dentist in Southern California. Yeah. And he told me, this was a couple years ago I first met him. He reached out to me a few months ago and said, David, just wanted to let you know that my business has grown 30% based on what you told me to do about showcasing my passion for skateboarding. Because people want the skateboarding dentist. They love what I'm doing. And so Dr. Marashi is all in with this idea. He's so excited about this that he's going to go with me to my next Tony Robbins event. I'm going to bring him up on stage and have him talk about how he was able to grow fans simply by showcasing what he's passionate about. So for everybody listening in, the lesson here is don't just be a business. Here's my business. The manifestation I see of so many people is here is my LinkedIn. It is very, very serious. Oh, and here's my Facebook, and here's where I have fun, but I don't want any business people over on my Facebook. Showcase what you're passionate about. Tell us about the fact that you love to skateboard. Tell us about the fact you love to surf. Tell us what sports team you love. Tell us that you love the Grateful Dead, because that passion is infectious.
Okay, so let me come at this from the flip side, because I know if I don't ask this question, I'm going to get hate mail, like loving hate mail, saying, why didn't you ask this question? So it's obvious. You've demonstrated not only in the book, but just in talking to you in real life examples, case after case after case, when a business owner invests in Fanocracy, applies the blueprint to their business, they're going to succeed. But having said that, with that success, what are some of the challenges? Because new scenario, new success, which we're going to realize when we follow this blueprint, is going to bring new challenges. What are a couple of those challenges that kind of arise as a result of successfully creating a fanocracy in our business?
So one of the things that's going to happen if you create a big fanocracy is that you'll have people who will follow you who don't actually do business with you. They don't pay you any money. And a lot of business people have a problem with that. It's like, gosh, all these people are like consuming our content for free. They're all like, all these people are watching my video podcast and they're not paying me any money, right, Ken? You have to recognize that you may be serving hundreds of thousands of people, even though you only have 1,000 or 2 that are your customers. And that's okay. Not everybody who's your fan is going to pay you money, but enough of them will that you'll have a great life.
Yeah, and a lot of those people who may never give you money, I mean, I've got a ton of them now that listen to my show that will never give me a dime.
Right.
But all they have to do is say, hey, listen, I've been listening to this killer podcast. Ken Newhouse, he just interviewed on the Get Clients Now podcast, David Meerman Scott. It was the most fabulous interview about this awesome book, Fanocracy. That person may never give you and I money. They may never buy our book, but the person who does buy the book may be the owner of some fabulous company or a very influential person who can then in turn, like a dandelion seed, blowing in the wind, expose us to just a huge marketplace of people. So those are the kind of people that you want people to listen, whether they're buying or not, because it's going to increase your footprint.
Absolutely right. But so much business is built on this funnel technique. You bring people down and then here's where something happens and we don't care about those other people. In this case, when you're building fans, you care about everybody, even if they're never going to pay you a dime.
So another question then, let's assume we're going to invest in your book. We're going to build a fanocracy. What are some of the things that can occur or probably will occur that are different from what we expect or imagine as a result of doing this?
Yeah. So one thing that's very, very interesting is that Reiko, my co-author and daughter, really dug into this idea is that once you put your art or product or service out in the world, you no longer own it. It's owned by the fans. And what will happen is that fans will talk about you, your product, your service, your idea, your art in a way that you didn't expect. And some people freak out about that. And like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, for example, Adobe, they make Photoshop software. They say to their customers, you cannot say that you Photoshopped something. That is incorrect. You must say that you manipulated something using Adobe, trademark our Photoshop, trademark our software. So they don't recognize that when somebody is talking about you, even in a way that you don't like, that's a good thing. So what will happen if you start to build fans is the fans will talk about you in ways you didn't expect. And you may not even agree with the way they talk about you. But to grow fans and to build this wonderful fanocracy, you have to let the fans rule.
As we sit here near the end of our interview, the final chapter of this particular adventure, I can't help but ponder the mysterious and unseen events that define our lives. Here's David, a successful entrepreneur who spent much of his life traveling the globe to attend live music festivals and concerts, especially of the Grateful Dead, a dedicated and loyal fan. And here I am, a fan of the outdoors who has traveled half a world away from my home, driven by an unquenchable desire for adventure in wild places, bow hunting, and fishing. That our lives would collide. Two entrepreneurs pursuing different yet similar passions that most onlookers would see as polar opposites. Yet here we are, two entrepreneurs, one a music lover and surfer, the other an outdoorsman and hunter, connected through an ancient pursuit that brings all the undeniable facts of life. We seek the challenge of the marketplace. We explore, we pursue, we win. That's one of those lessons in the book where you highlight very nicely how a company should not address their fans and should not treat people who are loyal customers and fans of your company. Let me ask you this, David. I got one more question. What's the one question today about fanocracy that I should have asked, but I didn't ask?
Oh, good question. I think you asked a lot of great ones. But I would say that another aspect you may have asked about would be something around the idea of how can you build fans who are different than you? People who are different than you are likely to become your fans.
So let me ask you a quick follow-up question. Then how do you balance that then? Because there are distinct groups of people that I do not want as clients, and I don't even want them as fans.
I think that's absolutely possible if you're talking about a certain type of client from the perspective of we only work with businesses that can afford to spend $100,000 a year on software. That's totally cool. But you don't want to inadvertently introduce a bias that says we only want to work with people of a certain race or gender.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Or that, and that's really what
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about here. Is
Okay.
if you create all of your images, for example, on your website are of white people,
right?
That's a problem. Or all the language you use.
Well, that's not a true representation of the world we live in. I mean, that's that's not reality. And so reality is where truth lies. And so, I was kind of getting to the point, and I just thinking back to just a quick story where, Frank told me one time, and I'm speaking of Frank Kern, where he thought his fan base, his customer base was one group of people, but when he really did the research, he realized that these were people who wanted to get rich quick. And so he didn't want get rich quick kind of people who were looking for the easy way, who weren't willing to invest the time and effort into building something legitimate. They were looking for an angle or a scam or that whole nonsense that we see online sometimes. But that was kind of the genesis of my question. But
I think that's right. And I think, my example was, okay, so we're in the enterprise software business and our software costs $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Of course, you can have fans who can't afford that software because they may move companies and be able to afford it in the next company.
Yeah.
But you can subtly create clues that says that, our software is not cheap and we want you as a customer, but if you can't afford it, then, we're not going to be the right solution for you. That's cool.
Talking about the book, what's the best way to buy your book? Amazon, your website? Tell us about that.
So we've got a great website at www.fanocracy.com. We've got videos and infographics and lots of other cool stuff that you can download. Book is available most anywhere. Reiko and I read the audiobook version. So if you're an audiobook person, then you get to hear us read the book to you, which is kind of cool. And on social networks, if you want to reach me, I am DMSCOTT, DM Scott on most social networks. And my website, my personal website is davidmeermanscott.com.
Sweet. Dave, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. Hey, have a good time on your vacation.
Thanks so much, Ken.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Our objective with this podcast is to help you and your business stand out in the marketplace by crystallizing your messaging, marketing, and communications. On behalf of the whole Ken Newhouse team, thanks for listening.